Spider-Man No Way Home is directed once again by Jon Watts, who was the director of Homecoming and Far From Home. This time it features once again Tom Holland, Zendaya, Jacob Batalon, but also featuring Benedict Cumberbatch, Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Thomas Hayden Church, J.K. Simmons, and many more. With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, Peter asks Doctor Strange for help. When a spell goes wrong, dangerous foes from other worlds start to appear, forcing Peter to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. Now guys, before I give you my review of Spider-Man No Way Home, I want to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere around the middle? Please comment down below. Let me know. Now, I know I haven't done a movie review in quite a while, but there are reasons to why I actually want to do more movie reviews. I do have a couple more reviews and everything coming out before I do my best of the year list. For instance, I'm seeing Matrix on Monday. I do have a review for Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, and then a compiled sort of quick review segment that I'm going to be doing as well, that I want to release a video of on the next week or so. But a couple days ago, I got to see an early screening of Spider-Man No Way Home. And I got to see it again last night, and I finally want to talk about it. I was thinking of, do I want to do it? Do I not? Do I want to wait until the weekend to talk about spoilers or anything? But I figured I'd give my spoiler-free thoughts as well, considering in the next 2 hours I'm actually going to go see it again. But I really had a good time with Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm someone who isn't the biggest fan of Homecoming or Far From Home. Far From Home, I think, is one of the lower Spider-Man movies, and Homecoming's sort of just mid-tier. I'm not a particularly big fan of them, but going into this movie, I went in extremely level-headed, but also cautiously optimistic. For the reason of, one, this movie is the worst-kept secret in fucking Hollywood. But this is going to be completely spoiler-free for anything that happens in this movie. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just save here, guys. I don't want to ruin this movie for anyone. And there most likely will be a separate spoiler video coming out later this weekend. Or even a live stream with a few people. Who knows at this point. But I had a really good time with Spider-Man No Way Home because it is very different in a way to the rest of the MCU, because this one felt like they took a lot of leaps, a lot of bounds, and a lot of risks. Having this many villains in one movie in particular served a very big risk with these films. And has proven to be a big risk in films previously. With Spider-Man 3, you had, the new Green Goblin, you had Sandman, you had Venom. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, you had, Electro, you had Rhino, very briefly, and another iteration of Green Goblin played by Dane DeHaan. So then bringing Lizard, Electro, Green Goblin, Sandman, and Doc Ock into the one movie was a pretty big risk. But I do feel that for the most part this movie does find its balance in regards to having all these villains and Tom Holland, because this isn't just a Spider-Man level threat, and there are ways where it shows that Peter Parker is finally becoming Spider-Man and finding what it means to be Spider-Man. I will say that this is the best iteration of Tom Holland's Spider-Man yet, and this is the best he has been as the web-slinger that we all know and love. And I think it is amazing a lot of the stuff that they don't just do with Tom Holland in this movie as Spider-Man, but also the things that they do with the villains. The villains actually have a surprising amount of heart to them. There's something very personal about them where you sort of feel sorry. And obviously without giving spoilers, but certain villains in particular, like Green Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, I actually found myself really caring for and sympathizing with. And there is on the other side of the scale with Electro, where you understand where he's sort of coming from. I think it is a really good thing to have. And I think they have really layered, grounded villains. They don't treat it like we don't know these characters. They know that we already know these villains. And they treat it as if they want to add these extra layers on top of what we already know, and for the lesser developed villains, they want to explore them a little bit more, which I think is really, really awesome. I think it is done and handled wonderfully. I also think that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange in this movie is handled pretty well. He might not be in it as much as a lot of you think, but he, for what he is in it, is great. There's one sequence in particular around about the middle portion of the movie with him and Spider-Man that has been teased in the trailers that I thought was a visual fucking spectacle and an absolute fucking treat to behold. And this movie does have its issues, admittedly. For instance, the movie in the first half does feel a little bit uneven. The beginning of the movie does go by at a pace that doesn't feel like it knows how to balance so many things going on at once, especially when the villains are introduced. It does feel, admittedly, a little bit unfocused, but at the same time, it understands its job and what it needs to do. There are moments where fan service is brought in, especially for the villains, where, you know, fan service isn't necessarily a bad thing by any means, and does work really, really well for the most part in this movie. There are just a few moments, lines of dialogue in particular, that are references to other things in previous Spider-Man movies that sort of were a little bit too on the nose, don't make sense and everything, and it just felt a little bit cheesy. The script, for the most part, is actually very well rounded, and is very solid. It's just a few little moments here and there where I felt like there were a few hiccups in regards to more or less relying too much on fan service, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, because the rest of the movie does have a lot of fan servicey stuff that is a fucking blessing to see, especially if you're a Spidey fan. And I think it's handled extremely, extremely well. A lot of the fan service stuff to not just be there to satisfy fans, but also serve the greater picture within the film and its narrative. I think it's handled wonderfully for the most part. And when that second half of the movie kicks in, the movie does find its footing a lot better and does have a more even approach that is more focused and stable. I personally feel that No Way Home is actually one of the better Spider-Man movies we've gotten. I'll talk about it a little bit in my ranking video, obviously, which will probably be out in a couple of hours after I see it again tonight. But Spider-Man No Way Home is a really, really wonderful movie. I just wish the ending was landed a little bit better, though, because the ending, while I think it's a really good ending and one of the better Spider-Man endings, the biggest problem I have is with a few plot holes here and there that I really can't talk about without giving spoilers, but it doesn't feel like the idea was truly thought through, especially knowing current day technology, and how the decision that is made at the end of the movie for a couple characters, it makes sense why they did it, and it's surprising. When I first saw it, I did not expect it, but the big problem I have with this is the fact that they did really need to stick the landing for this ending. And for the most part they did, but it's more or less the plot hole sort of, you know, meddling with the ideas and with the technology we have today. This is really hard to talk about without spoilers, guys. I'm telling you, this is really hard. But it doesn't feel like it was entirely thought through, and there are certain things that, due to the decision, that would render the decision sort of mute. And what Peter's kind of trying to do at the end of the movie is a lot easier if he just kind of realizes it. But for the most part, it is a good ending. There are just a few things here and there throughout the film and in the ending that aren't particularly thought out well, that are written a little bit wonky. The pacing and the uneven flow that is very unfocused in the first half while still enjoyable does feel a little bit jarring, sometimes very jumpy from location to location and scene to scene. There are a few, you know, little subplot elements that are focused on a little too much that I just didn't give two flying fucks about. But, you know, for the most part, Spider-Man fans will be very, very happy. I think that certain moments as well had a bit of hiccups with CGI, because in particular on the bridge scene, which is the example I'm going to use, everything looked a little too clean. There are explosions going on around and, you know, smoke and fire and everything, and rubble and debris being flying up. What is it, tossed and destroyed everywhere, but Doc Ock on that bridge and Spider-Man do look way too clean, and it reminded me very much so of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull during the jungle chase sequence, where they're getting beaten up, they're getting all dirty, rolling around on the ground, especially with the anthill sequence, but no one seems dirty, no one seems very injured, and everything just seems a little bit too bright and glossy, whereas in here, it kind of feels the exact same way, and I don't think the Iron Spider suit really helps in that case, because everything, Doc Ock and everything, from the fire and the smoke and everything, it just doesn't feel like it blended well, especially with how clean everyone still looked. You look at Spider-Man released in 2002 in regards to Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker versus Green Goblin in that final climactic battle before Green Goblin is killed, how they're being beaten up and everything, and pieces of Peter's mask are just being shredded and destroyed, and he's bleeding from his mouth, and the explosion of the pumpkin bomb. It's just like, when you see it in that movie, and even in Andrew Maguire's Amazing Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man 2, like the claws across the chest, or being electrocuted by Electro, you can see the damage, the battle wounds, and the effects of the blows and the punches and every single hit they take. In this movie, it doesn't really feel that way in the first half of the movie when action scenes do happen, but that is something that is it is fixed in the second half of the movie with the particular scene that does happen, which I can't talk about. It's a very emotional one, but I don't want to talk about it. Can't talk about it here. This is a very hard video to make, because there is a lot here to spoil, but I don't want to. But no, I think Spider-Man No Way Home, with a few hiccups here and there in regards to pacing and, you know, an uneven focus, and then the second half being a lot more focused, and a bit of script issues, and certain things here and there that are very spoilery that I can't really talk about. Look, I just can't talk about it, but they are issues, but please believe me when this is one of the best Spider-Man movies we have. It is in my higher ranks. I really had a good time, and this is someone who didn't enjoy Homecoming or Far From Home. And on my second viewing, I watched this movie like a fucking hawk, just trying to, like, find flaws. Like, that's what I was trying to do, because I walked out of the movie initially being like, holy shit, this is like the greatest Spider-Man movie. Then I saw it for a second time, and I'm like, you know, it's not the greatest Spider-Man movie, but it is a great Spider-Man movie. It's not my favorite by any means, but it is a really solid Spider-Man movie. God, this is hard to talk about without spoilers. But I really did have a good time with Spider-Man No Way Home. I think you guys should definitely go check it out. Theaters are selling out and everything all over the fucking place. The theater I'm going to tonight to go see it again is sold out, as a matter of fact. And I can't wait to talk about it more in a spoiler fashion later this weekend, hopefully. I'm going to give it a couple days before I do that, because it's out today in Australia, not till tomorrow in the US, but I want to give it till at least Saturday, Sunday for me to talk about it. But either way, guys, you know, I still had a really great time with this movie. I can't wait to see it again tonight. I'm going to give Spider-Man No Way Home a B+. Guys, what did you think of Spider-Man No Way Home? I want to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you somewhere right in the middle? Please comment down below. Let me know. Do be sure also follow social medias at Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and Twitch to watch my live streams and keep updated for the content coming to the channel. Look out for my movie reactions coming very, very soon, every single weekend, as well as more reviews, trailer reactions, you name it, breakdowns. Look forward to my How to Beat Every Saw, you know, Trapping the Saw series videos that are returning as of next week. I can't wait to bring those ones to you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on the social medias, as I said. Make sure to click the subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.